Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Behavior Analyst Leadership Council Spotlight, Leaders Spotlight. We are a behavior analytic trade organization. We were founded in 2015. We've run multiple conferences in the Northeast, and we're going to Miami, March 2nd to 5th, 2022, so save the date. We're an organization that is committed to supporting behavior analysts, serving as leaders, managers, and business owners. And today, I have the pleasure of talking with Carol Pilgrim, who is the president for the Association of Behavior Analysis International. Carol is a professor at the University of North Carolina. She's won some pretty fantastic awards, the 2016 Distinguished Contributions for the Experimental Analysis of Behavior, and the 2017 Distinguished Services to Behavior Analysis, and mentoring awards from University of North Carolina and ABAI. So I want to welcome Carol. Hey, Carol, you turn your camera on. There she is. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
I am doing well. I can never quite get this Zoom culture down, even though I've been doing it for a while, but you know, I think I have everything set now. So it's a great day today. It's kind of gloomy here. What's the weather like there?
We've been having rain off and on as well. So if it gets very loud here, I have a metal roof on my house. It can become quite cacophonous at times, but with any luck, we'll be fine.
So I'm not sure if I introduced myself in the beginning. I'm James Hoko. I'm the executive director for the Behavior Analyst Leadership Council. And one of the fun things about this position that I get to do is to talk with people that either I've known or I haven't known. Carol and I haven't met, even though we've been in the field for a long time. But one of the things I found out is that we're both hikers, and we've both been recently hiking. I've been up in the New Hampshire White Mountains, and Carol has been
in the canyons of southern Utah, of all places, where it's hot and dry and absolutely gloriously beautiful.
So I guess you can find behavior analysts all over the place, even in remote hiking regions. I actually love it myself. I took my son and some teenagers up there. But okay, so Carol, this is a leader spotlight, and you are a fantastic leader. So I'm really happy that we have you here. Tell us a little bit about who Carol Pilgrim is.
Well, thanks for inviting me first, Jim. I just wanted to say that. And in terms of who I am, a little bit of a bio. I grew up and went through public schools in Richmond, Virginia. So I'm an East Coaster through and through. I did my undergraduate studies at Virginia Tech, go Hokies, and went from there directly to graduate school at the University of Florida, go Gators. Loved my time there, and a very pivotal part of my life, actually, and went from Gainesville, Florida to Wilmington, North Carolina for my very first academic job, and never planning to have my entire career here, but it's worked out pretty well. So I've been in Wilmington ever since.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I was actually born in Pennsylvania, and I ended up going to school first in a little school, W&J College in Pennsylvania, but then went to the University of Kansas. And I was fortunate to work with some really good people, but too long ago, because my age is getting up there now these days. So it's always good to hear about people. But tell me about, like, how did you become interested in behavior analysis as a career and as a professional field of interest? Did you have that grab moment, which is like some people describe it as, wow, this is cool and I can really help people? Or tell me about that.
Yeah, I kind of like my story actually on this dimension, because I think it may be a little different than most people's route into behavior analysis. But when I started my undergraduate career at Virginia Tech, I was a double major when I began in psychology and philosophy. And it was actually in a philosophy course. I think it was the very end of my freshman year, maybe the very beginning of my sophomore year. I took a class called The Nature of Man, which shows you how long ago that was, but we won't dwell on that, as you mentioned. In that course, we read a number of books by philosophers of all different ilks. It was a little bit of a sampling in philosophy. And one of those books just happened to be by a guy named B.F. Skinner. And so my very first, I mean, I had learned about some basics of operant conditioning and so forth and so on, but it was really having that experience of reading Skinner that caused me immediately to drop my philosophy major and focus more specifically in studying psychology. So more through the conceptual.
Ask you,
Yeah.
ask you which book. Because when I was in graduate school, it was like trying to read everything that he wrote.
Right. So my first book was Beyond Freedom and Dignity. And then that led to quickly read, you know, that was a pretty hot ticket at the time. And followed that up pretty quickly with some other books of his. But you know, at that point, I really sought out other opportunities to learn about this thing called behavior analysis because it had that immediate click with me, as you were describing. There weren't a lot of other behavior analysts at Virginia Tech at that time, but there was one behaviorally oriented faculty member whose name you may know, Scott Geller. And Scott was in the midst of doing some of his large-scale community-wide behavior change work. And I started working in Scott's lab, and that I've never turned back. I've pursued further study of behavior analysis ever since.
It's interesting the connections people make as they're moving through their life and their career. So one of the things you seem to excel at, when you talk about the awards, is mentoring. And BALC is all about leadership, and mentoring is a huge part of leadership. So I'm wondering, you know, why that chimed with you, and can you relay any success stories that you're particularly proud of in your mentoring life?
Gosh, why it clicks with me, you know, you mentioned, this ties in too, that some people talk about that click moment where they get interested in behavior analysis, but in talking to folks about their own story, often you'll hear their click moment came in shaping behavior. Sometimes it's even in shaping a rat's lever press, but when you see that those principles actually help produce some new repertoire, it's a really exciting thing, right? Well, mentoring is shaping on steroids, isn't it? Because you're working with many repertoires simultaneously. But I think there's nothing quite so exciting as seeing a young student come to be a really potent behavior analyst, and to see that shift in all kinds of skills along the line is there's nothing like it. You know, I have this sort of old school view that the world really would be a better place if more people knew about and understood well the principles of behavior. And so being in a position to actually earn a living by helping others learn about behavior analysis seems like about the best thing in the world to me. Right. So that's kind of the hook in being mentoring. In terms of successes, I kind of feel like they all are, you know, and mentoring kind of runs the gamut. So I love those moments still where I'll be at a conference, for example, and someone will approach me, often someone in their middle ages now, and say, you know, you don't remember me, but I have.
I like that middle ages. I just wanted to, we're going to use the term now.
That's right. I had a class from you way back when, and it really made a difference in my career. That's a little bit of mentoring that to me is a huge success. But all the way through, you know, all of my graduate students and seeing how well they're doing now, how they're contributing, bringing their own unique contributions to the field, that's just totally exciting to me. So.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've had the moments where the people come back to you and say, Thank you. You know, I really appreciated that. You really changed my life, kind of a thing. You know, I've been fortunate enough to have a couple of those happen, which has been really, really reinforcing, and I'm sure you have.
It means a lot. It means a lot. It really-
So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I have a number of students who would come into our programs, graduate programs, because they had some opportunity to work with individuals with developmental disabilities or different diagnoses. They thought that was very cool. They come in thinking that that's the end all and be all. And then to see them really become, well-rounded behavior analysts, many will start doing research and say, hey, I never thought about this as a career before, but it's very exciting to me too, to see that all develop. That's what mentoring's all about.
Right. Nice to see the professional growth, but also to see the fulfillment that they get from their own professional growth, which is fantastic. So,
yeah, well said.
Speaking about fulfillment, let's talk about some of your accomplishments. Like, what are you most proud of in your profession?
Gosh, well, those mentoring relationships are some of the things I'm most proud of, to be honest. But gosh, Jim, I feel like I've been so incredibly fortunate in my life to have gotten to be a part of a number of different things, and real accomplishments take a whole team of people at least to reach fruition. And I've been able to be involved in a number of groups that have gotten a lot done, I feel like. When I first got to UNCW, for example, we were completely undergraduate department and university, and there was one other behavior analyst on the faculty at that time. Today, we have 8 behavior analysts on the faculty at UNCW. We've had a tremendously successful master's program in applied behavior analysis for a number of years. And we just graduated our first and very soon our second PhD student. So our PhD program is relatively new, and it's proving to be very effective as well. So that's a really meaningful accomplishment of an entire group of colleagues to be involved with.
That's exciting. And I want to go back to the beginning of your answer, because it ties really well into our leadership theme. And when I asked you about your accomplishments, you started to talk about being part of a team and evolving that. And one of the things that I have noticed is that as new leaders come up, a lot of them think that they have to do it on their own. They have to know all the answers. But your answer was just, a perfect answer in terms of what real leadership is. It's pulling people together, using everybody's strengths for some type of a cooperative goal. So that was fantastic. I love that. So this is your second time as president of ABAI. Okay, now everybody listens. 2 times president of ABAI. There are thousands of behavior analysts out there who would love to have any position like that. So here's my first question. Is that unique? And then in what ways is it different, and why? This time versus last time when you did it?
It's most people learn faster, I think, and take it on once. But it's not unique, but there are not very many individuals who have served twice as president of ABAI. Let's see.
What year were you president prior to this?
Excuse me?
What year were you president prior to this?
I was first president in the year 2000. So in asking how this will be different, it's different in many ways, right? Our world is a different place than it was in 2000.
Sure is.
For better or worse, our field is very much changed over the last 20 years. And certainly ABAI has changed in many ways during that time period. And honestly, I feel like I'm a different person than I was 20 years ago with lots of different experiences under my belt. So it is a very different enterprise along all of those dimensions. Um, I'm excited about it because I feel like I have more skills to bring to the table now than I probably did my first time through. I've worked at this point in so many different capacities within ABA, um, that I have a better feel for how all of those pieces can fit together, back to your team theme again, and be more effective as a result. No single part is ever going to be enough to advance our field. We've got to all be intertwined and working in sync to make it all sing.
Right. And, the leader recognizes what each member can bring out toward that goal, which is, what we all strive for. So, okay, I'm going to give you a tough question now. You ready?
I think so.
How would you define leadership? And what advice might you give to behavior analysts seeking and/or beginning leadership roles?
Well, that is a tough question, actually. As I think leadership can come in so many different forms. A lot of people think of leadership as having a particular title or a role that designates you as leader. But the people who work into those roles have really been leaders for a long time before they achieve those roles. And I think you do that by being able to work towards making a contribution with whatever the team or the group is that you're part of. So the very newest person on a committee can really function as a leader if they're bringing a positive energy, some ideas and some suggestions for how to help things move forward. And that always involves listening to people, asking good questions, which is often as big a part of being a leader as maybe even more important than necessarily having the answers, and listening to everyone and bringing the sense of how can we make this better rather than here's what's wrong. Well, that's only a starting point. How do you move on from that, right? How do you improve on that? And you can do that from any level.
So in your own life, in your own journey toward leadership, I'm just curious, when did you sit back and think, hey, I'm a leader in the field?
That's kind of an interesting question. I don't know if I still do.
Actually, that's great because, it shows what I'm trying to say is, it's real people that are doing these things, and leadership is defined by behaviors that you do. So I can totally understand that, but I'm pretty sure you're a leader in the field now, Carol.
Well, thanks. These roles that are designated as leadership roles, really more than anything else, they're service roles. And so I think, you got to be willing to roll up your sleeves and do the hard work right along with everybody else that's doing the hard work. And it takes a lot of time and energy. So it really is a service. That's how things get done.
Right. So given that it's a service and, you got to roll up your sleeves, what do you hope to accomplish now and what's next for ABAI?
Oh, gosh, there's so much going on right now, as you know. One of the big focuses that I've been working on over the last several years is with respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion in behavior analysis, both in terms of how we all do our work within ABAI or other organizations that behavior analysts are part of, but also how we bring our science to bear on questions of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are big pieces. And I really, back to accomplishments, I think working with a very strong team, I am excited that we're seeing some change on those dimensions in terms of what ABAI is doing and where we're going as an organization. but that's really it's an absolutely critical need, and it's an important push for us right now. Another big push within ABA right now is working with our members, our international members outside of the US, who fall outside now of the BACB certification areas. They are in desperate need of having some way to make the case in their countries with their federal agencies that they're qualified to be doing what we're doing. So there's a big push ongoing to help have some standards, some tiered standards that individuals in countries outside of the US and Canada and some parts of the English-speaking world are able to show what they're up to, show their worth really, and their standards in behavior analysis. We have a lot going on right now. This is just very current, that shows the importance of us reaching out to the public more to make clear what behavior analysis and applied behavior analysis really is all about. There's some serious misunderstandings currently out there that are leading to some difficult times. So I see those as some of the big picture issues. For me personally also is the big umbrella issue of how we continue, I'm very old school on this, but we continue to make sure that people who call themselves behavior analysts are really well-rounded, well-trained behavior analysts. So we need to focus not just in the application, the practice, but to also ensure that there's strong appreciation for the conceptual background and the experimental basis and how that all works. It's a multi-pronged set of issues, and eating one of them too heavily is not to our advantage, I believe.
I'm really happy to hear you say that, because I was fortunate enough to get that really solid grounding, because that's the way that behavior analysts were educated before. There has been a change, and I'm not saying good or bad, but there is a lack of that emphasis on the conceptual. And for me, I think that a lot of the applied problems can be self-resolved if you had a good conceptual background. At least, that's the way that I was trained. So I would say here, yes, let's make sure we do that. Talking about when I was trained, when I first told my parents that I was going to be a behavior analyst, my father thought I was going to work for the FBI, because he didn't understand what a behavior analyst was. But back then, ABAI was a couple of thousand people, mostly white men. Back then, talking about diversity and all of that, and it has certainly changed over the years. Not just ABAI, but we have multiple behavior analytic organizations forming. We have BAC forming or have formed the BACB, BHCOE, all of these different organizations. With that broadening in all these organizations, what do you see as ABAI's specific role?
That's an interesting question too. I think the different organizations are important because we are big and broad now as a field of behavior analysis, and no one organization can serve all of the specific functions that every group is working to develop. So I've been a big fan and proponent and supporter of a number of the other groups that are in place. But at the same time, I think, just to circle back to a point we were just speaking to a moment ago, it's necessary to have that big tent where all of the dimensions of our field are still brought together. I mean, the age of specialization has created more, I think, impetus to really dig into one particular area. As I said before, I think that's not serving us well. There needs to be at least important times during our yearly cycle, like the ABAI convention, where you're back in touch with those conceptual roots and the experimental bases and the applications. All of us need that. It should be more often than once a year, I would say, but at least the big convention and the journals that we have help to support that goal. And ABAI will always be the home for that full, well-rounded behavior analysis in my eyes.
Great. Well, this time has been great. I just got a couple more questions for you, and it's got more personal, I think. What's next for Carol Pilgrim? Like, and what I was going to ask, what professional wishes would you like to see granted, but let's just open it up. Like, what's next for Carol, and what wishes would you like to see granted?
I have a magic wand now.
Yeah, let's assume that.
Nice. Well, next for me, I will be retiring from my university position pretty soon. And I have a number, I will still be active within behavior analysis, however. Got a lot of writing projects on the docket that will, hopefully I'll have some time to address. But I love to travel, as you were just talking about, for hiking and for other purposes. So all kinds of good plans along that dimension. But I guess if we're going to leave on a big wish for the world, I'll circle us back once more to something I said earlier. I still am committed to that view that the world will be better when and as more people understand basic principles of behavior. So all the ways that we're working to help support those efforts, the science and the practice and the conceptual bases of behavior analysis is a good thing. I hope to continue to be part of that.
I'm sure you will. What a great ending comment. And just want to mention to everybody, we have these leaders spotlighted on these different sessions, and you can see people are just people. They're not, you can reach out and you can talk to them. I'm not saying everybody email Carol, but I didn't know Carol beforehand, and now it's my great new friend who happens to be 2 times president of ABAI, which I love. I like that particular statistic. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, Carol. Hold on with me. I am going to share our final screen and let everybody know, again, we are the BALC, Behavior Analyst Leadership Council conference in Miami. What a great place after being shut in all this place. So join us in Miami, March 2nd to March 5th. And I know we're getting over the end of this pretty dangerous period with this pandemic, but I just want to say, thanks for attending, stay safe, and be well.